What was kind of the aha moment for me, my very first show was at a church garage sale, okay? It's not prestigious. I was just like, let's just go and make some connections. And I think I sold a $75 piece and booked a $100 commission. And that was a huge success.
Yo, Chris, man, what are you doing? What are you up to?
I'm just helping people reinvent their lives. No big deal.
Yeah, no big deal. Well, I'm going to join in.
Cool.
God bless, we're breaking these runs. Life too short to play it on speed run.
Chris, my brother, big day on reinvention. Who do we got? What are we doing?
Todd, my man, we have got a real life reinventor I'm super excited to talk to today because she is a serial reinventor. I mean, she defines reinvention. She was a lawyer, she's an artist, she's a poker player, educator, writer, advocate. And, people are well-rounded, but no, she's doing these things for a living and she's gone through it sequentially, multiple reinventions. She's got a really great story and we're going to let her tell it. But first, let's introduce our guest, Sara O'Connor. Welcome to the Reinvention Podcast. Thank you so much for being here with us, Sara.
Hello, gentlemen. Hello, community. Let's prepare to change our minds for the better.
Yes.
I love it already, Sara. Thank you. And Sara, just so you know, I heard your story on another podcast and it was about people getting unstuck in their careers. And the beginning of your career story felt a lot like mine. Right?
Yeah.
Except you got out a lot sooner. I stuck around for 20 years and just kind of, grinned and bore it, right? But you got out pretty early. I will talk about, I think you liked what you did, maybe more than I liked what I did. You excelled at it, but it was maybe just the structure and rigidity and top down and maybe some oppression from the top down in the corporate structure is what got to you.
And that's kind of a nature of the beast, unfortunately. But when you have an entrepreneurial individual who's very creative and you kind of don't let them spread their wings, they're eventually going to fly somewhere else if they're smart enough, in my opinion.
For sure. And that's exactly what I sensed and heard from you, is that I think it was a matter of time, in a sense, that you were going to have to come out of your shell. But I want to start back in the shell, right? Let's start at the beginning. And by the way, I feel like I emulate you a little bit and maybe I can be inspired by you because I felt a lot of pressure to go do the quote unquote right thing. Was that kind of the place you started your initial career from, the right thing to do? Or how was that?
It was really interesting for me. So let's go all the way back to college, where I, like many people, had some favored things, but not necessarily sure how to turn it into a career. I, in fact, even considered going to art school. I was always artistically inclined. I thought about being a ceramicist. If you go to art shows and you see potters, please thank them because that lifestyle is absolutely brutal on the body and the mind. So I decided that lifestyle wasn't for me, but I didn't know what to do with myself. I did a lot of different clubs and extracurriculars, but nothing felt right for the forever future. And so my roommate just happened to be studying for the LSATs. I had just happened to do mock trial back in high school. I just happened to realize that the job market was absolute shit. More so for my stepbrother, who was a few years ahead of me, because we're dealing with the early 2000s and it was just atrocious. And so I thought, well, I love school. Let's try law school. I did not do too well on my LSATs. I think I did something like 154. And if you're in the culture, that's good enough to get into some schools, but not good at all. But I ended up doing extremely well in law school. I was second in my first and second year of law school. So I got my second and third year paid for through scholarship that I earned. I did not expect that at all. You always hope that you're a smart cookie, but to kind of do better at each level of education was such a blessing because by the time my husband and I thought it was time for me to get out of law and to do a move for his job and potentially my new artist job, it was an incredibly invigorating ability to be able to say, I've actually paid off all of my law school debts because I didn't have as many as the average student. And I think being shackled by college debt, being shackled by graduate school debt, that really puts us in a hole early on to just become wedded to golden handcuffs that don't serve us well as people.
Yeah, well said. I got to say that I almost went to law school, and for some reason I just didn't. That's where everyone thought I was going to go. So such a great story that you started, and you could kind of almost see it just kind of happened, right? That this is where my life went. And this is the situation for so many midlife reinventors right now.
Yes.
People are like, how did I get here? Okay, things happen and here I am, and now I have this house and this family or these situations and this money and this 401k or whatever it might be. Now I'm not really happy and the world is changing. And now I'm sitting here like, what do I do, right? So let's talk about your reinvention a little bit. So now that we got you into law, you did well. And then it sounds like you started to think about making some shifts, a little bit earlier on. Walk us through kind of what happened and how you started thinking about and this idea of maybe changing or exploring other options dawned upon you.
Sure. So the law firm that I worked at was one of those big time international law firms. It was huge. And while I enjoyed a lot of it, one thing they don't teach you in law school is how to be a good manager. And while I had a few good managers that I loved working for, genuinely loved working for, they didn't have enough projects for me. And I was so low on the totem pole, I wasn't yet able to bring in new clients to an international law firm because I was still a baby attorney, right? I only worked in the legal firm for about 4 years, and that's still quite green in the belt. And so while I did have some excellent mentors and excellent managers, I did have a few managers who were not good matches for me, including one who pursued me in a way that was unprofessional and really affected my mental state of mind to the point where it got so intense, I actually went on medical leave. I don't know if this resonates with you two gentlemen, but I'm sure it resonates with a few people in your audience. My eye would twitch from stress, and it wasn't necessarily from the bad manager. It might have been my billable hours, X, Y, Z, whatever it was. My body was genuinely having a physical reaction to the constraints that I was under, and it just wasn't good for me. And so when I was on medical leave, I decided to play with my husband's paint set. He's not an artist by any stretch of the imagination, but we just had some paint laying around. And I remembered back when I was a child, I used to love playing with perler beads, which is those tiny little multicolored plastic beads that you put on a little design and then you iron and you lift the paper, yada, yada. Well, I'm neurodivergent through and through and have been since a very early age, because what I would do is I would take thousands of these beads, mix them, sort them, mix them, sort them. And I thought, well, that's kind of silly to do that as an adult now. How can I make that permanent? So I started doing pointillism, which is painting dot by tiny dot. And now if you look behind me, I do big, big landscapes, very abstract, very colorful, very, very heavily textured pieces. And it's developed over years of practicing with my art. And so to make a long story short, my managing partner at the time pulled me into his office and he said, well, Sara, I know you're starting to sell your paintings and that's all well and good, but we want you to be a lawyer 24/7. Now, were there male colleagues who had side hustles and were allowed to have side hustles?
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Was I allowed to have a side hustle? No. So my husband and I basically said, this is an untenable situation. He's been courted by a big time business in another state. What if a year from now we get our finances in order? I reinvent myself as an artist, try it out because it had always been something that was in the back of my buffer, just constantly part of my identity. And then we could focus on his career leveling up. So it was kind of a win-win for both of us, but it took about a year. And so for people who are listening, you may feel panic and constrained and frankly kind of fight, flight, or flee in your situation. That's normal. That's okay. accept yourself where you are, and make a plan to figure out your life moving forward. Do not act rashly. Do not act emotionally. Act with foresight as to who you are as a person. That would be my advice from lived experience.
I love that. Yeah. And the way you tell your story there, Sarah, it's you had a conversation with your husband and you guys thought about, okay, how can we play this out? And what I hear is you say, I'm going to take this as like an experiment. It sounded like you were already selling pieces at that point, right? And so you had some proof. But then you're like, all right, let's see what a year looks like on this thing. Like, let's lean into this thing. And that's something that we talk about that all the time with reinventors and the people who are listening is let's run an experiment. Let's run an experiment and gather some data and see what we find. And now I think what you found was that you had a market for this stuff, right? So that's a really good thing. And by the way, terrible situation that you describe in the corporate law setting where they're like, discrimination and the way that they approached that and kind of didn't give you the same opportunities as the men might have gotten. That's just bullshit.
Yeah.
but have you ever run the counterfactual of, in a way, the ironic good thing is that they kind of pushed you to the brink to say, oh, you're kind of like forced me to make this decision in a way that was the right decision for me.
Yes.
If you had been caught in the middle, have you ever thought about that where like, what if they were like cool with it and just let you roll? Like, would you have stayed in law 5 more years or?
I mean, that's the fascinating thing. We can play fantasy land. I have no idea because I think what also resonates with your audience is the money is hard to walk away from. The title is hard to walk away from. It's so ingrained in us that I could have seen myself putzing around, certainly. But the thing was, I reached a point where I realized, I'm a lower tier associate right now, which is exactly where I'm supposed to be at my age. Do I want to be a senior associate? No, not really. I like managing people, but it doesn't have to be in law. Well, do I want to be a first year partner? No. Do I want to be a managing partner? No. Do I want to be on the board of this law firm making decisions on behalf of everyone? No. So what am I doing on this ladder?
Right.
Get off.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. I think it was inevitable. And I will say, I try not to be smug, but I did have a little smug moment when I was saying goodbye to all of my colleagues. And there were several managing partners who said, I wish I had your moxie. I wish I had your drive. I wish I had your talent. There were several people that I talked to that you could almost see them processing the woulda, shoulda, coulda in my own life for them.
I love that. I mean, I think what Chris and I always talk about on reinvention and this concept of reinvention is that these conversations offer our listeners the ability to dream and even just to get some internal permission to think differently about their trajectory. And someone like you does it. Like you actually literally cross the chasm and you do it successfully. And we want to hear about the success of this, Chris. I think we want to get to what your business looks like now and all these other things that you did, poker and all that. But let's not get there quite yet because I'm just curious about the process. And you said a couple of things that really hit home for me that are very relevant to the reinvention philosophy that Chris and I have. Like we have a workbook that we tell people to take, and a lot of the things that we do in the workbook, you said, right? Like you talked about making a game plan. You had conversations with your husband. The money that's hard to walk away from is much harder to walk away from when you don't make a financial game plan that allows you to see some level of window or security by which you can explore these new options. So you did a lot of these things naturally, right? Like you had that conversation. Your husband had a job. He was moving. You had a passion. You had art that was always interesting to you. You had an idea. Like you had a bunch of these pieces, and then you kind of made the decision to walk away, right? I think that a lot of what you're saying also was your talent and also the circumstances that you set yourself up to be a successful reinventor, right? It wasn't just random. You actually did a lot of these things naturally, which is why, Chris, I love that you met Sarah and brought her on the show because it just corroborates a lot of the things that we talk about, right? So here's my next question. I want to hear your feedback on that, but I want to lead you into a question of when you started to explore art, as a business, I want to hear about that as well. Like, what was it like? You have to sell and you have to market, and this is a totally different thing than law. How did you go about figuring out that new business? Because this is a big thing for reinventors right now. It's like they may have the idea, but it's also like, well, how do I do it? Like, what do I do? Did you get a model? Did you like take a course? What did you do to figure out how to be successful in this new world?
I tried a lot of different things. Some of them worked, some of them didn't. I'm very cautious about artists in particular buying classes from other artists who haven't been in the game for a long time or who are just coaching to coach, because that becomes their real bread source instead of actually creating the art and being in the trenches and doing it. Your workbook, however, seems right in line with what you should be thinking about when you're thinking about making the change. What was kind of the aha moment for me is my very first show was at a church garage sale. Okay. It's not prestigious. I was just like, let's just go and make some connections. And I think I sold a $75 piece and booked a $100 commission. And that was a huge success. The biggest differentiator for me was, do people outside of my friends and family want my work? If yes, there's something viable. I didn't want to interrupt you, but one of the most important things when you are going out on your own, and I'm doing this at another talk for another organization, is as much as we want to be entrepreneurs as Americans in particular, and there's this very like me solo journey process, it takes a bloody village. So like, to the extent this podcast has a community, lean into that community, lean into fellow entrepreneurs, lean into fellow explorers, and be not obnoxious, but open and loud about who you are. Because then, like, case study right here, you get invited to podcasts to talk about your dreams. And talking about your dreams, whether you believe in manifestation or not, actually makes them more likely to happen.
That's so spot on. I mean, she's basically reading the workbook out loud for us, and I don't even think she's seen it. Todd, you know why I wanted to have Sara on? Because I heard her and I was like, oh my God, like this is spot on. This is what we need everybody to hear. And you said something that I think is so important, Sara, that I want everybody to really lean in and listen. When you're launching your new thing, one, no putting on airs. Oh, they got a folding table at that church? I'm there. Two, once you make the first sale, like outside your circle of people who are doing a pity sale or whatever it is, once you make your first sale, it's all scale from there. You have proven the case. N=1, now just turn it into 1,000, 10,000, a million, or whatever it is. And you got there because you were running it from an experimental standpoint, right? So it's like 175 revenue in the first church sale was not like a proof of anything besides I can do something here, right?
I mean, that was less than my billable hour. You know what I mean? For a whole day of work, that was less than a billable hour, but that was my freaking billable hour. That was my effort, my revenue, my proof of point. It feels different when you have ownership over your own life. It just does. But remember, any entrepreneur who says it's easier working for yourself than anyone else, that's BS. Entrepreneurship is hard work.
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
Sorry, Todd, I just wanted to go down the road for a second because I think this is the right moment to do it. And Sara, you can stop us if it's not the right place to go, but you mentioned neurodivergence. And in fact, Todd and I were just recording an episode where we talked about this, where, you know, I have ADHD. There's a spectrum we can talk about, but like, I think that Todd does not. Or maybe he does, but like not to the level that I struggle with it. And so we've had challenges as partners and collaborators sometimes because I'm like not processing things in the same way. I wonder, both in the law world and in the entrepreneurial world, if you're open to talk about it, have you had to sort of assess or have you had to manage that or think about like, how does work for me within the way I process things?
You have to. Anyone who doesn't is setting themselves up for failure. You have to have such a candid and honest conversation with yourself. Consider, frankly, working with a therapist with it, right? Because some of these societal expectations are so ingrained in us, it takes extra individuals who are outside of your circumstance to help you kind of see how to reinvent yourself in a healthy way. Taxes is something I don't do. My husband helps me with taxes. My mind just doesn't process that way. To jump the gun, one of my best friends, James Cloutier, and I have started a 501c6 called Railbird Creations to publish news and to advocate in the gambling community with a focus on poker. He's our president. I'm the CEO. CEO thinks creatively and like, how do we move forward? A president makes sure the ship can keep functioning.
Yeah.
You know, our lawyers had said to us, Sarah, since this is kind of your baby from the jump and you're inventing this, you're putting forth most of the seed money, do you want to be CEO and president? And you have to take a step back and go, am I capable of being president? No. Do I want this to be viable? Yes. That's James's strength. So we give James that responsibility and we give myself other responsibilities. You have to think about yourself very, very critically. And I think one of the things I struggled with is being honest about myself, about what I want for myself and what I want people to see when they look at me and think of me.
Right.
And you have to be humble and you have to be willing to say, I'll take the blow in order to have my dream come to fruition, because there is nothing worse, in my opinion, than keeping up with the Joneses in your own mind. There's no one in there but you.
I love that. I just have to say that, you know, one of the things that a lot of reinventors struggle with is identity. We talked about that, I think, even before we got on. This is a reinvention of your identity, right? And a lot of people in corporate that are in jobs that either they're burned out or they're being challenged by potential disruptions in AI are looking themselves in the mirror and are realizing that their current role is changing so fast, or they may have grown out of it. And there's a lot of stress, and that causes, well, do I stay? Do I go? Do I stay in my industry? Do I fully reinvent to become an artist like you? I mean, this is what is up in the air right now. And I think
For sure.
this conversation is just so relevant because you're obviously somebody that's crossed the chasm. But I do want to ask you a couple of questions about your reinvention, right? Because you left a law career, you know, you were an associate and you were working your way up, and there's certain money and salary and status associated with that. And then you went to be an artist, okay? And it looks like, from what we've intuited here, that it's not just art you're doing, you're also working in poker, you have an organization. So other things have grown out of your reinvention that I want to hear about.
Yes.
But I am curious about like the financial part, because I think a lot of people are talking about, oh, with AI coming, there's a big movement of people, leaders that are saying that there's going to be a resurgence in the humanities and arts and people making money doing stuff like what you're doing. And a lot of people are like scoff at that. Like, yeah, right. Like, how is that going to work? How is everyone going to be an artist? I mean, this is just what everyone's thinking. And I get it. It makes sense. But you're somebody that's done it. So talk to us a little bit about that. Like, as an artist, somebody that's working in the creative field now, coming from a very non-creative field in a sense in law, have you been able to make good money? Like, how have you navigated the financial piece to this? And with that, Sara, I would also, you know, maybe this is a second question, but how did other things grow out of your reinvention as well that are related to or not related to?
Yeah, it would certainly be a struggle. And I do not have any qualms about this. My life would be very different if I didn't have my spouse along with me, because he is the main breadwinner. He gets the cake. I get the icing. So it's what works for us as a team. When you don't have a team, that year-long plan of escape that I had would have been a 3-year-long plan of escape for me. You just make it work. For me, that last year of working in law was so much easier because I had a new goal that I was working towards. So even if that length of time becomes 3 years or 5 years, think about it like going to college again. College or your trade set or your skill set just becomes what you do on the side, and it might take you longer than it takes someone else. That's okay. Like, what you're building is different from what someone else is building. If I was born a multimillionaire, we might not be having this conversation at all. You know what I mean? It's different. Everyone starts on different starting points, and we all end at different starting points. So it works well for me because I have a partner that combined our finances make it possible. My business is thriving, but Frankly, I'm done with outdoor art festivals. My husband was my unpaid volunteer who would help me set up and tear down and travel across the United States to sell my wares. And now I'm pivoting with my art business to make room for the poker and the writing and the authoring that I do, because that's now my new passion. I know what it takes to be an artist. I did that for 10 years. That's like my longest stint I've ever done with anything as a professional. As you guys had said, I taught for a while and loved that. I tutored law students for several years. I loved that. And so I've been missing the teaching and the writing that I got to do before. And I'm returning to that now, but now my lens focuses on poker and making the game fun again for people. So I'm kind of reinventing at the same time we're having this conversation, because literally the legal work is being filed for our 501c6 now. You know what I mean? So this is a very exciting time. I'm trying to think. I had been a writer for a poker organization, and when they had decided to sell their business, they cut my pay down because it was higher than anyone else's. And they said to me, well, we're now going to have more editorial control over what you write. No, you're not. I will then do my own thing, because I at least believe, rightly or wrongly, about what topics should and shouldn't be covered. So once again, I have set my sails, but again, it's not alone. It's with a community, because no one can go it alone, in my opinion.
Absolutely. There is a through line, and I guess, can we call Sara a reinventor or a reinventor? Or how many re's can we get on the front of that? But,
yeah, it's a few.
But there is a through line, and I'm going to make a nerdy poker analogy, and you're going to check me if I'm right here. No pun intended. No pun intended on check. Sorry. We're getting real. But what I think of sometimes with people who are contemplating reinvention, like if I think about you're in your law career and you're like, hey, I'm starting to sell some art, but like certainly at that point, your art was not replacing your salary, right?
No, and full candor, it has never reached what I earned as an attorney.
Right. But what is the price we'll pay to do the thing that's in our heart and soul that we actually care and love? That's a whole, you could put a huge dollar amount on that, frankly, if you wanted to compare apples to apples. But I think a lot of times people get hung up. In fact, we know, Todd and I, we've spoken to people who get hung up on this idea of, I make $150,000. I just got to build my side hustle up to $150,000 and then I'll quit. And it's like,
nope.
Where are those hours going to come from, you human being? I'm foaming at the mouth to get to my poker analogy, which is, I think of the idea of the semi-bluff. You don't have the winning hand, but you have a hand that could improve to be the winning hand. And you act at the table as if you have the winning hand. You're believing the cards will come because you've got a draw in poker. But in life, what you're betting on, and this is what I heard from you, Sara, you're betting on yourself, because you're like, I don't know right now that I have the numbers to make it work, but I know that I will make it work. And I believe in myself. And so I've got enough evidence here that I'm going to push and go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the one thing we can be absolutely sure about is we don't know if reincarnation is real. We don't know if heaven is real. We don't know certain things, except that I've got one life to live, and I'm going to cram as much as I possibly can in my time while I'm here. It is wonderful to me that I have created a legacy where some of what I've created will be passed down to family members. How long? I don't know. My work could end up at Goodwill for some families. But at the end of the day, I have created a lasting impact for my collectors. And in the poker world, it's hard to tout your own successes because I've only been in the industry for about 3.5 years. So again, I'm still a young, scrappy buck in the game. But people have told me that I am making positive waves in ways other people haven't. And so you have to believe in yourself. And I don't know if your listeners know this player, but Phil Hellmuth, who is a world well-known poker player.
He's a little bit of a crybaby when he catches a bad beat, but yeah, it's all good.
he shouted out one of my books on No Gamble, No Future, which is a very, very big deal, at least in the poker industry. And so that was, again, a proof point for me that, like, I'm not even in the bleeping room and I'm being talked about by people as big as him. I am on the right path.
Yeah, you're giving so much gold here, right? You know, it's really just a beautiful story. And Chris, going back to what you said about she's a reinventor, there's a reframe here because reinvention doesn't connote one move, okay? It connotes a philosophy in terms of how you approach your life and your work and your money making. Because a lot of people have been stuck on one conveyor belt for a long time, and it's hard to get off that conveyor belt.
We're conditioned to being cogs ever since grade school.
We're programmed to be on this conveyor belt. And now it's like a lot of people are being forced to, whether by their own internal mental state or by society or AI or whatever, to like think about it. But the big shift is more away from, I need to get on another conveyor belt, that's my reinvention, more to, I'm an explorer of my own life, you know, and I'm going to try a bunch of different things. And I know that I need to make a game plan and I need to create some semblance of security like you did with your husband. And like, you do have to use your cognitive mind to make a game plan.
Right.
But the shift isn't to, oh, I'm going to find my next thing and that's it for the next 20 years per se. It could be that. But it's more like I'm constantly looking at opportunities and exploring them. And there seems to be, for people like you that I've been around, this emergence of life force that comes out when you're living this way. You're excited about your day. You're creating. You're free.
I don't get the Sunday blues. Monday at 7 a.m., yeah, I'm fucking ready to go. You know what I mean?
But this is such an important point, you know, because this is why we're doing this. We need to open up the doorways for people to think about themselves as artists, as creators, as explorers. And you need to have a workbook like what we have, or have a natural ability to game plan and look at your money and look at your relationships and do all of those things, right? And I also just got to say that I don't know what you're authoring, but I've interviewed a lot of people and I've been coaching for 20 years. You also have a real keen ability to motivate people on particular career reinvention. Like, I think you're speaking very succinctly to like what we've been talking about and what I've been living for years, which is the actual art of opening yourself up from getting off the old identity and path to something new. You do it naturally. And like, I think there's another potential avenue for you there, like maybe working more with us or we do another interview. But I just think there's something more there because people need that. And I think you have a very natural, powerful, and exuberant way to express it.
I think that this is what resonated when I heard you. What resonated so well for me is like Todd and I are looking at reinvention as a mission from a sense of, yeah, we want to help individual people. We want the people that are listening to be helped by this. But for me, on a deeper level, it's like there are artists, there are creatives, there are people who have things inside them that they're not bringing out into the world. I don't want to aggrandize it too much, but I guess I'll go there. Like, to me, it really is like changing the world. If we can help people to bring out what they're suppressing and what their essence is that they are holding down and waiting for the family to go to sleep so they can go fuck around on the piano for 10 minutes at night. Like, I want that shit out in the world from everybody. And I think that that's what your energy goes.
I'm not beating around the bush. It is pure magic when you help someone unleash themselves. When you help someone give permission to be themselves, it's one of the most beautiful things you can do as a person, in my opinion.
100%.
And you're doing it right now. Like, you really are doing it right now. So I'm curious, like, so as a reinventor, as an entrepreneur, like, how are you playing with AI? Like, how do you hold what's happening in that space?
I really love using AI. Do I use it in my art business, like my painting business? No. Do I use it in my poker business? All the time. And I will say, poker Twitter had a lot to say about it. A lot of people were very, very, very upset with me, but it makes it stronger. It makes it more analytical. It makes me allowed to do more with less time. And separate from article writing, where I put now, AI assisted, I use it when I'm starting to think, is this a good business strategy? What would be a PR backlash reaction? How do I deal with conflicting viewpoints on who I am as a creator? I personally think AI is here to stay. AI allows you to reinvent yourself. have a freaking chat with it. Like literally have a conversation with it about these are my skill sets. These are my desires. What do you think I could do next? What should I do next? It is phenomenal at helping you potentially map out that game plan that we were talking about. What is your financial structure for the next 3 years? Here it is. What skill sets do I need to do to have a side hustle? What is that structure of the side hustle? Use it to structure your life and create that game plan. You don't have to create content with AI if you have a moral or an ethical conundrum with it. You can use it as a kind of sounding board for what you're hoping to create. AI is not the enemy. It is a new creative tool. Are you afraid to take a train or a car? Then you shouldn't be afraid to use AI.
The distinction that I like to make is that I think it's such an incredible tool. And I love how you said, I use it as a, sparring partner or a brainstormer. For me, when people fully outsource something to AI that they sort of haven't actually set anything up there, that's where it goes wrong. I mean, that's where you just get garbage in, garbage out, or nothing in, garbage out. But when you're using it in the right realm, I mean, even from a writing perspective, you bring in your idea and you load it all up and then you use it to structure. For the way my particular version of neurodivergence works, that's incredibly helpful. Because getting from vomit draft 1 to final draft is where the whole thing falls apart for me. So if I can supplement that with the tool. But I love the fact that you are embracing it as any other tool. And we are 100% there on this podcast where anyone who's listening, like if you're not using it, what are you doing? You got to get in there and play with it. And you're going to find your way to use it. It might not be like what you see everybody else telling you that they use it this way or that way, but you really can't ignore it. You have to get into that. You have to figure out what works for you there.
And one of the most fascinating things is I told ChatGPT that I have bipolar disorder. And that means I can experience high mania, which is a glorious but dangerous feeling. And I can feel low feelings of depression. Once when I was dealing with extreme backlash for using AI, and I was trying to kind of go back and forth with AI on how to kind of navigate this system and what my response would be, AI even said, whew, that sounds a little too manic, a little too spicy. Do you want to cool that down? It can help you with tone. Think about this. Paint a picture. You are finally ready to make that leap and you feel like I want to kind of stick it to the man for a second when I draft that final email. AI will help you say like, do you really mean to burn that bridge? And it's incredible in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, we're totally pro AI here. I mean, not only is it not going anywhere, it's probably the biggest technological shift we'll ever see. The level of integration that this is going to spurn over the next 10, I have an 8-year-old kid. I mean, I can't even imagine what her life at 20 is going to be like. Just like the way that we're interacting with data and information in the world is going to be radically changed. So I mean, look, my dad is 82 and he never stayed on technology. He just like rejected technology and like, it's not a great way to be. And I think there's a fine dance because we want to remain human and we want to like do our art and all that. But like getting off of the technology train because we don't believe in it, or we're frustrated or whatever is like also not a great strategy. So we all have to find our own way. But I think what we really want to be doing here, especially for reinventors, is use the tool. Like this is a tool that can help you get to your success faster in a bunch of different ways. So I love that you brought that in. By the way, I just want to cap this off by saying, and I know you guys will give you guys the last word, but I'm grateful that Chris, you brought Sara on and I love hearing your story. I think we could yap for like another 2 hours and get more energy and like just hear more stuff about how you hold this stuff and what you're doing. But it's really impressive.
I appreciate that.
And like the way that you did it, it really is exactly embodying what we talk about on the show. And I think these stories are just so important because I got motivated a bunch of times on this call being like, oh, I need to do this. I need to think more creatively. I need to get more fearless in the way that I'm doing X, Y, Z. And I think that is the important thing because we all have the ability to reinvent ourselves. Every single person has the ability to make a change that's positive for their lives and their families' lives. Every one of you can make a game plan. Every one of you can get up and do something slightly differently. You did it. We're doing it. Other people are doing it. There's no time to waste. Like the world is changing very fast. Stop being stuck. Okay, make a choice to reinvent. And thank you for being such a model for it. I really appreciate it. It's really amazing to meet you.
Thank you so much. Ditto, ditto, ditto.
That's why we wanted to have you on here, Sara, because I just know there's people listening that are going to hear that. We heard it, right? We got the wake up call. We got that feeling. And it's just really, really important for people to be able to envision that possibility for themselves. And you do such a great job. I mean, your story, again, I want to run through a brick wall right now. So I appreciate you, Sara. Thanks for being with us.
Yeah.
Amazing. We're going to have you back on, I think. I think we got to do another one.
Yeah, I would love that. You know, if I can end on a cliche artist analogy, you are your own clay. You are your own canvas, paint and paintbrushes. Everyone is their own artist. What are you going to create today?
Let's do it. Get out there, guys. This is your day. Let's go. Thank you.